It was a week of technical evidence, but also human moments in the trial of Erin Patterson. I'm here to talk about it with veteran crime reporter Anthony Dowsley. I'm Brooke Grebert-Craig, and this is The Mushroom Court. Welcome back, Dows.
Hey, Brooke. Good to hear from you.
So we're at the pointy end of the trial, aren't we?
We're right near the end now, we would think. The prosecution for the past, is it 3 or 4 weeks now, Brooke? I'm losing count.
We are at the end of the 4th week.
Yeah, so most trials go for 5 to 6 weeks, murder trials, that is. And we would be expecting that the closing addresses from the prosecution and the defence would come towards the end of this week. But as with any trial, you can't be sure. And it's worth noting here that Erin Patterson has pleaded not guilty to 3 murder charges surrounding the deaths of Don Patterson, his wife Gail Patterson, and her sister Heather Wilkinson. And she's also pleaded not guilty to the attempted murder of Ian Wilkinson, the only guest to have survived the lunch, who has given evidence in this trial. This trial surrounds a lunch that was served to them that Erin Patterson cooked on July 29, 2023. And ever since, there has been a police investigation into that, as well as other departments such as the health department that have looked into the circumstances of what happened at that lunch. The defence say that this was a tragic accident. We know that the prosecution say this was a deliberate act of murder, an attempted murder, and it is up to a jury, which will be eventually 12 people, it is currently 14, that will have to decide a verdict very shortly.
So, Dows, this trial really keeps coming back to 3 different points, which are family, religion, and money.
It does. It's been a theme of this trial from the very first witness that we heard from, being Simon Patterson, the estranged husband of Erin. It keeps getting to how religion formed a big part of their life, the church, how they continued to have family involvement in that. So it's been about the church and the family. And it's also, later on, it becomes a little bit about money. And how money became an issue, particularly when they were separated, particularly in the last 2 years. So we're talking about 2022, 2023. So this all becomes a factor, as we've spoken about before, when Simon Patterson either ticks a box or writes that he's separated on a tax form. And this sets in motion what the witnesses say was a friendly, workable relationship into a more hostile one. But over the weeks, this theme keeps coming back and back and back. And this week it came back in the form of Facebook messages from an account the prosecution say are linked to Erin Patterson. It was, first of all, an account called Erin Patterson. There was an account called Erin, and the messages I'm talking about are from an account called Erin. And those messages were beamed to the court this week, Brooke.
Yes, they were. And the jury heard that these messages were found on a phone that was seized from Erin Patterson's home in Leongatha on August 5.
So if we go through some of these messages, we can only say that the prosecution say they are linked to Erin Patterson, but they detail the prosecution's case that the money or the family contributions that she wants Simon Patterson to make are not being met, and she's trying to get the family involved. These messages that the courtroom has been shown, that have been beamed up on screens, are messages such as, I thought his parents would want him to do the right thing, but it seems they're concerned about not wanting to feel uncomfortable and not wanting to get involved in their son's personal matters and overriding that. So FM. Messages like that. His mum was horrified I had claimed child support. Why isn't she horrified her son is such a deadbeat that I had no choice but to claim ? So these are the allegations surrounding these particular messages, and they hark right back to the start of this trial when Simon Patterson gave evidence similar to all of this business surrounding a family breakdown.
Some other text messages were, "Nobody bloody listens to me. At least I know they're a lost cause." And another one was, "I wonder if they've got any capacity for self-reflection at all." I mean, clearly the fact that Simon refused to talk about personal issues in part stems from the behaviour of his parents and how they operate. And I will just note there were other Facebook messages that were shown in court as well.
So this is really leading the courtroom to the dynamics of the family in the months, 6 months, 12 months leading into the lunch. I think many of these messages were from December 2022. And as you said, we haven't read out all of the messages. There was ongoing messages because they're a family. But, you know, there is obviously problems leading into this lunch. And as we know, at the July 29, 2023 lunch, they're invited to talk about a serious matter. Erin Patterson serves up the beef Wellington, and at the end of that, she tells them, allegedly, that she has cancer. So we're dealing with a complex set of circumstances, but the jury is hearing that there is a relationship problem. And Brooke, the week ended very strongly on this family aspect.
Yes, a doctor who worked at the Austin hospital took to the stand and gave evidence on Friday. He told the jury that he treated Don and Gail Patterson and Heather and Ian Wilkinson in August 2023. So this is after they were taken from Leongatha and Carramburra Hospital to Dandenong Hospital, and then they were all transferred to the Austin in Melbourne. He told the jury that all the lunch guests suffered from acute liver failure. And I think it's interesting to note that Ian Wilkinson was actually in court on Friday, and he really has been in court most days of the trial. So he was hearing all of this evidence about himself, about his wife, his sister-in-law Gail, and about Don Patterson in court on Friday.
And the court heard that Ian Wilkinson was very close to death.
Yes, that's correct. The prosecutor asked the doctor, how close did Ian Wilkinson come to dying? And he replied, "We thought he was going to die. He was very close." So yes, Dowles, it was a very human moment in court on Friday. So we also heard more technical evidence this week, didn't we?
Yeah, and this evidence surrounds the digital devices that were seized from Erin Patterson's home. We know that mobile phone was seized. It had been factory reset afterwards. We know that there are data records involved in this trial. We've had experts such as phone tower experts give evidence. One, Dr. Matthew Sorrell, told the court that he couldn't eliminate the possibility that Erin Patterson's mobile phone was taken to spots near but not in the two Gippsland locations where the prosecutors say death cap mushrooms had been found after the discoveries were posted online. So that is one part of the evidence, that Miss Patterson's phone might have pinged nearby towers in Outram and Lock in the Gippsland area, not too far from Leongatha. We've heard evidence again this week surrounding, the phones travelling in this area. But these are all evidence where, it sort of goes to and fro. It's not an exact science, but it will be evidence that will be considered at the end of the day.
You mentioned closings at the start of the podcast, Dowles. Why are they so important?
Well, at the start of a trial, there are the openings which set out the case, and the prosecution goes for a lot longer than the defence does. At the other end of the trial, it is the prosecution that goes first again, and it is the defence that gets the last say. And this is the moment that defence lawyers look for to persuade a jury that their client should be acquitted. This will be their summation of the case, and they will try and point out the pitfalls, the flaws, even the errors in the prosecution case that they have observed since its beginning. And with any trial, defence barristers are trying to look for those little bits of evidence that puts the seed of doubt into a juror's mind. They will question them. They will go through some of the witnesses and what they said if they choose to. So they can go for some hours, sometimes days. And it is really that persuasion, that review of the evidence that becomes really important. It's that review of the evidence, the persuasive argument that they look for to tell the jury they have to be beyond reasonable doubt to convict their client, in this case, Erin Patterson, of the most serious charge you can be charged with, and that is murder, in this case, a triple murder and one attempted murder.
Thanks, Dows, and I will speak to you next Sunday.
See you in Morwell.